Catus Maximus here. So this is it. Almost 12,000 feedback on Amazon. That's actually no joke. See what I mean? For real. 11,808. It's cordless rotary tool, 7.2 volts, lithium ion, 900 milliamp hour battery. I'll start off with the not so goods in my opinion. It's an underrated motor. There's a lot of negative reviews because this is a Chinese made tool. They do have made in China on it, but it's so small that you can't read it without a magnifying glass, and they're kind of hoping you'll glaze over it. Super tiny batteries at 900 milliamp, just super tiny. At a 7.2 volt tool, that means it has like a 7 watt hour battery. It's just unbelievable, you know, when they're making, I believe this has two 18650 cells in it. We will take this apart at the end of the review to take a look inside. But they should have, this thing's like 20, you saw it, $21 or $22. They should have made a $35 unit, put in a better quality motor, had better quality control in the assembly so that people, it seems about 1 in 100 of these has the chuck, this little area that's this threaded piece that accepts the collet, and this is absolutely Dremel standard. So here's a actual Dremel brand 3-jaw chuck, and this thing just slides right on there and works just fine. So that's like the good news, is you can use all the Dremel parts. This piece is a machine piece that's press fit over the shaft of just a little DC motor, which by the way has the smallest vent holes I've ever seen on a power tool. Not very good quality control, and this thing has been cockeyed, and some people have gotten these units and they've been just totally unusable. It does use a brass collet, which I do kind of like. Anyway, the super small battery, they should have had a more powerful motor and better quality control. Those would be my, those would be my primary disappointments or criticisms. Otherwise, it does have a pretty nice design. I do like the push button operation as a 5-mode variable speed up to 25,000 RPM versus the 10.8 volt Dremel, which goes all the way up to 35,000 RPM. This is the Model 800. This is like a 5-year-old unit with 5-year-old batteries, so we'll be testing this side by side against the cordless Dremel. And then for giggles, when you need the power of a corded tool, you should probably get a corded tool. So I'll be testing also against this 395, which would be the last of the American-made Dremels. Anyway, this win, I do like this option where it's just nice and easy to be able to change the speeds. Really not too bad at all. I also like the fact that it has this ring LED light. If we take a look here, it's not particularly bright, but it's bright enough to where if you're in a dark area, it will illuminate it. So I thought that was a cool feature. And something that Dremel rotary tools woefully are missing is exactly that fact. We have no threaded collar, so you can't use this with any sort of threaded fittings like the cordless Dremel is. The cordless Dremel is made to be used with all their snake adapters and right angle adapters. The Win is not compatible with any of that stuff. It does have a little charge light right here. It does switch from red to green when it is charged. It uses a little tiny weak cell phone charger, so this little switching charger for it, and it's like a 2-hour charger, and against a 900 milliamp hour battery, that's also disappointing. It's a little 9 volt just power adapter, and then the actual regulation happens on the charging board inside the tool. So if you ever lose this, you can just get any old 9 volt power adapter, and it uses a standard concentric barrel plug, and be able to replace it. So at least that's a positive. And Wen is actually a brand that's been around since like the 60s or the 70s. They always have made mid-grade tools. That was kind of their thing, was tools that were essentially kind of like Black & Decker's general use line or graded tools, and that's what Wen was. They were never really the best, but they were always just pretty decent tools for what they were charging for them, and they were just more of a budget. And surprisingly enough, they've been bought out long ago, maybe a few times, and surprisingly enough, their name is still kicking along. And this is not rigid orange. This is what I call pumpkin orange. This is a very orange. Another quick thing that was a little bit annoying is if you listen when you turn it on, see how it overspeeds and then slows down? A lot of quality power tools, when you hear them do that, indicates that it actually has a load sensing power controller. And it's putting a bunch of power into the motor, spinning it up, realizing it's going too fast, and then slowing it back down some. However, this kind of has that effect, but it's not really load sensing. If we have it on low, I can't really feel that it's actually increasing the power at all when I'm using my fingers to hold it. So let's just do a little power test here. I'll do just a little bit of a test with the wire, or a well-used wire wheel, and a little cutoff test between these three tools. Then we'll come back to the bench. Here we are with the wire brush. I do like the blue lights. We have it at full power. That actually seemed just fine, to tell you the truth, at least for a little wire brush on this grade 5 bolt. Now for the Dremel. Obviously way more power. That wasn't even really a comparison, but it did show how my camera doesn't like to focus, but just how much more powerful the Dremel Model 800, and this isn't even a particularly great unit. Here we are with the Win, and we are going to be using a fairly heavy-duty fiber reinforced cutoff wheel. Full speed. Make sure to wear your safety glasses. Let's see what it takes to actually cut off this fastener here. It always starts up and low. I'm just noticing that. If you boost it all the way up to high, turn it off, and then you go to use it again, you got to boost it all the way back up again. That's a little annoying. Well, that was no good. I put hardly any force onto that. Well, that's just getting pointless. I'm not going to try that anymore. We'll try finishing the cut with the 10.8 volt Dremel here. Oh, come on now. This is also getting annoying. We'll try that one more time here. Oh, come on now. This doesn't want to reset. Moral of the story. Moral of the story is cordless rotary tools, you need to get a Milwaukee or something if you want to have real power out of these things. Alright, here we are with the 395 Type 6 corded, just to show you how this operation is really supposed to happen. Obviously, you really need, if you need the power of a corded tool, then you should probably get a corded tool. And that was a long little cutting session. I do make the exception for like Milwaukee, because they have a cordless rotary tool that, my understanding, is about as powerful as many of the corded ones, like those corded Dremels. But besides those, or actual corded Dremels, many cordless rotary tools are just, unfortunately, quite underbuilt. If you're working on model airplanes, doll houses, that type of stuff, the power that this has, you'll probably be able to get away with. But even using little sanding drums, those things actually take quite a bit of power to drive, and having a tool that cuts out on you pretty easily, and then when you turn it on, having to ramp it up every single time, have it cut out, turn it back on, ramp it back up, will definitely get annoying after a while. Even if you only pay $22 for it, how much money is it worth for your time, effort, and frustration? Let me pop this open. We'll take a look inside. 8 screws, 2 behind the label, so I had to do that. Usually with most tools and things that you take apart, the side of the case that comes off is the side that the screws go through. But that is not always true, so you always want to take a quick peek. Those are not 18650s. Those are actually a little bit narrower in diameter, about 15 millimeter, and they're longer than 65 millimeters in diameter. These appear to be about 3 inches long, so they are using a slightly proprietary shape of battery. They do have a temperature sensor so if there's a problem with the charging circuit and the batteries start overheating, it should prevent it from catching fire. But why the little sensor head is kind of hanging off in the air way out here instead of maybe being like this, or maybe right on top of the cell and then having the piece of tape hold it right on top of the cell, that's not the greatest thing. So they have a temperature sensor. It just doesn't have the greatest placement or securement, so it diminishes its ability to actually prevent this from burning down your house. Not to say that I've seen anything like that happen with these tools. I don't want to get sued by them. Nonetheless, that's undeniable. If you can have a temperature sensor that's a protection device, it needs to be held securely against whatever it's trying to prevent from overheating. And in this case, they haven't done that. There's our charging circuit, charging boards under the batteries. There is the, oh, I see, this is a connector from the battery to the charging board. We do have a little 7.2 volt motor there that is fan cooled. It is just a bronze bushing motor, not a ball bearing motor, but they do have a ball bearing at the spindle, which explains why the spindle felt reasonably tight. Some interesting choices. See, this shaft is press fit. Is that press fit? No, there's a set screw on there. So that shaft is drilled and then just pushed on by hand, and then they use a set screw with some glue on it, or Loctite, to prevent it from coming loose. You'd think it's a press fit, but that's kind of interesting. Then they have this brass piece that they fit over it. This is what the lock fits into, or ball bearing. The 2 wires go in the little LED board. And then, of course, this piece here, which is the actual collet fitting. Let's see if I can't ease this unit up. Let me unplug it here. There we go. And I kind of want to take a look at this charging board. It looks like it's going to be just a second. Let me pull these things out. These are 65. These are, I said 15. These are 14 650 cells. That explains a little bit, but you can still get 2 amp hour 14 650s. Something I'm noticing which can contribute to it cutting out is these connectors are locking, but they're just not very tight. That's a real issue. If you get one of these, I would, as soon as I get it, I would actually open it up and use a pair of pliers just to squeeze these ever so slightly, because these types of connectors are not supposed to move back and forth. That's a bad connection. It's going to reduce the amount of current that's being delivered to the motor, and it's going to leave power on the table. That's rather unfortunate. This is a very simple and obvious issue that costs performance in power tools, and they just completely overlooked it. That's almost inexcusable. All right, and the final little bit here, they had a screw secreted away under there. There's our charging and power controller board. Actually, quite a few circuits. It's actually pretty complicated, but this is going to have that electronically controlled variable speed as well as lithium-ion battery charging circuit all integrated into one board. Anyway, let me get this back together. I'll give you my conclusion. Quick last note, it is fiberglass reinforced nylon, 30%. So in conclusion, I pass up on this. Actually, I dropped it just finishing up this video, and the darn lock button actually fell out on me. It appears to just be pressed on with just force, and so if you drop this little button will fall out on you. You'll lose the spring, and that thing just rides against the lock. That's a pretty severe defect. This thing should not be able to pop off like that, because it effectively can ruin the tool, because that little pin, that spring is pushing up on the top of the button, which is pulling up on the lock pin. When the button falls off and the spring falls out, then that lock pin is just riding against the slot. That's severely disappointing. In short, If all you have is $22 and you just need to do some small projects and only go really easy and slow, then you'll probably get away with this tool. And I do like that it has this lights in the front, but otherwise it is just made too cheaply and is too underbuilt to really be effective as a legitimately useful rotary tool. And then seeing the way this button fell out, the improper temperature sensor placement for the battery protection, my best advice is for you to find something better. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.